Oh, it's a country music time machine, taking us back to where the grass is green, with swings and tales from days gone by. Let's ride those old trails beneath the open sky, in our country music time machine. In our country music time machine.
Well, howdy there, everybody. Welcome back to the Country Music Time Machine. This is your old pal, Kevin. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've been with you, but we're happy to be here. And of course, we are on the front porch right now, the real front porch. And finally, and can I say hopefully forever, we're going to be from the front porch. I guess if the weather's bad, we won't be from the front porch because who wants to be out here in the middle of a thunderstorm? But you know, it's a good place to be. Today in Tennessee, here in middle Tennessee, it's about, the clock says 60 degrees, and I'm used to the warmer weather, so I'm still feeling a little bit chilly with about 60 degrees. So, I'm still getting used to it. I'll give you a tiny tour. I got the robot camera working here. If it'll follow me, I'll show you a little bit of the front porch. You might even see a car go by. I don't know. This is front porch out here. You can't hear me if I'm not. I forgot to bring the mic, so sorry about that. Anyway, let me lower the camera a little bit. Welcome in. I don't know where you're calling in from, but or viewing in from. Wherever it is, you need to chime in and let me know who you are and where you are. And I probably know who you are and where you are, but a lot of folks are new and they tune in and they like to know where people are tuning in from. So let's bring up a few now. We got the one and only Michael Murphy in Newark, Ohio. Michael, always tuned in. Thank you so much, Michael. There is Bigelow.65. I don't know where you're at, Bigelow, but howdy to you. Bigelow says hi. P. Smith says, nice porch, thank you. It's a lot to take care of, it really is. To cut this yard using a push lawnmower, it takes 8 hours. I learned that. That's why I bought me a used riding lawnmower. P. Smith is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's beautiful country out there. We got the one and only Country Music Time Machine historian Joshua John. Joshua is in upstate New York. And it's probably colder in upstate New York than it is here in Tennessee today. I would imagine. We got Katie from Norman. I'm assuming that's Norman, Oklahoma. The home of the state home of a lot of country stars. Maria Brown, she's always like the first one tuned in all the time. Maria, thank you for tuning in. We got William May. He says, good evening, everyone. Have a wonderful Palm Sunday from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thank you, William. As always, tuning in from Tar Heel Country. Yes, I'm a little chilly out here, William. Got Rita Harris tuned in. Rita says, hi, Kevin. Hope you had a wonderful day. Hope you're enjoying your retirement. This is Rita from New Jersey. You know, Rita, someone asked me yesterday, how are you enjoying your retirement? Well, I've been working a lot in and around the house. I got my mom moved from South Carolina to Tennessee, and it's a lot of work with that, in the yard and the house and getting rooms ready. I hadn't even played one round of golf yet, but that's coming soon to my future. Bigelow is in central New York. We got J-Cat, as always. J-Cat, who in his picture looks like the Marlboro Man, is in Portland, Oregon, where it's probably chillier. Michael Murphy says, yes, sir. What happened last 2 weeks? How was Belize? Well, Michael, the last 2 weeks, I was moving from Belize. So that was an ordeal in itself because there's a lot of parts, a lot of stuff, flights. I actually brought a cat with me. Go figure that. Country Music Time Machine and the Pop Music Time Machine actually live in the same house now, and she's got a total of 3 cats. So there are 3 cats in and around this house. I'm surprised one doesn't look out me in the window behind me, but yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on. Howdy to Katie over in Germany. Germany, a beautiful place. I've never really had a chance to get off the plane and roam around Germany, I don't think. Maybe I did in Austria. I can't. Or no, not Austria, but I'm thinking to the capital of not Berlin. There's another town I went through on an airplane. I can't remember it. I can't remember what it was. It was a long time ago, and so I don't know. We got Sherry D from Alden, Louisiana, or as it's correctly said down south, Louisiana, Louisiana, Normandy, Germany. That's what Katie meant to say. And I'm still trying to think. I know the town that I landed in Germany had something. I know all towns in Germany have something to do with beer and sausage. That's what all us Americans think. But somewhere the name of the town in Germany had something to do with beer. I can't remember. JCat says it's 54 degrees um, in Portland. So it's about the same. It's 60 to here, only 6 degrees warmer. And Michael Murphy says, I have one cat and my son, my baby. Cool, Michael. All right. I've got my Coke and peanuts here. Let's take a sip, get some caffeine. Maybe it'll warm my body up a little bit. Um, and P. Smith wants to know what's in my Coke. Let me hold it up to the camera. I don't know if you can see it. Those are peanuts. That's the way us country folks, especially country folks in the South, we put peanuts in our Coke. Mama puts peanuts in her Pepsi because she's not a Coke person. I'm the Coke person. So that's what we do around here. We do strange things, but we love it. We love it. And Katie says, it's Hamburg. Yeah, could be in Hamburg. No, it was Munich. It was Munich. That's where I think I left the airport in Munich, not in Hamburg. All these memories of overseas and flying, I can't remember all of them. That's why I have other people that have better memories than I do. Um, and it says, William May, is that true? So I just two commercials just ran on YouTube. Wow. Maybe I'm going to make some money now. They're not supposed to run in the middle of a live one, but YouTube may be just a little bit screwed up. All right, let's get the news going. Of course, tonight we are featuring the 1950s in country music history. I did do all the years of the country music history of the 1950s, and that was fun. Um, but tonight we're going to feature the 1950s. And I must say this, I almost forgot it. And if I do that, they won't pay me. But the broadcast tonight is brought to you by the wonderful folks at the Home Depot, where you can buy and find everything for your front porch, your back porch, your middle porch, your top porch. People think I have a top porch on this house. It's actually just a disguise. It's not a real porch up there. I guess if you cut a hole in the attic, you could walk out to the railing and watch the sun go down, I guess, but it's not a real porch. But if you want to get some cool stuff, you can always get it from the Home Depot. And one of the best things is one, I think I have 6 around here or 7 around here now, the Outdoor 4 camera from Blink. It's a great camera. I'm going to show you some of my latest views. This is from last night. Let's bring up this video from last night. As you can see there, the deer come and visit us at all hours. It doesn't have to be in the daytime, early in the morning, late at night. They're always here. They're always in the camera, and then maybe they see it and they get spooked, and then they just like run away. Run away, deer, go away. There it goes away. Also, got to. That's Mama on the front porch this morning. She already had her coffee and she's going back in. As you can see, the sun rising in the east. She's up like me about the time the old sun rises. Go back to some of the comments. See what folks are talking about. Julian Santagita says, "Good to be here, Kevin. I'm still in Toronto. Be going back to Paris, Ontario today. It's my birthday. I'm 25. I enjoyed my birthday. I enjoyed my day. Well, happy birthday, Julian, up in Canada. And what does JCat say? But that Coke Zero has no caffeine. You're kidding me. JCat, you're breaking my heart. I'm going to have to read the bottle now. I know it's got 0 calories, but I thought I had caffeine. Well, well, well. I'm going to have to live on life, I reckon. Corey says, Dad likes Coke, so I grew up on Coke, but after having a Dr. Pepper, once I got hooked on it. I'm gonna I'm gonna stick to the Coke. I'm just gonna stick with the Coke. All right, let's do some little news update here on the Country Music Time Machine. Always saluting the Country Music Time Machine crew members of the week. And we got some familiar faces there. And we've got some folks who maybe have never been there before. J Cat, he was tuned in, commented a lot, busting me on a few things, but that's all right. J Cat's keeps me honest. 45 Deer 9500, tuned in a lot to the Country Music Time Machine this week. Kevin Lesh, better known, I guess, K. He was tuned in a lot. And Dalia Shohet, also the top 4 Country Music Time Machine crew members of the week. And also have a beautiful lady called Tesla out there. She's tuned in. She says, hola. And as a fella, some of you may know this. Southern country is my main language, but I do speak Spanish. So for Tesla, hola Tesla, ¿cómo estás? Espero que todo está bien contigo y gracias, muchas gracias por haberme aquí en este canal de YouTube. Gracias. Yeah, that's Tesla. That's enough of Spanish for a while. William is saying happy birthday to Julian. That is cool. And Michael Murphy says, I saw the light and Lonesome Whistle Blow, 2 of Hank Williams' greatest songs. Yeah, we're going to talk about Hank Williams, of course. And Corey says today is Vince Gill's birthday. How did I miss that? You know, the last time I ran into Amy Grant at Walgreens a couple of years ago, actually, Walgreens in Franklin, Tennessee. But Vince was not with her. So if Vince Gill is tuned in out there, happy birthday to you, Vince. Glad to have you. Tennessee Ernie Ford sings 16 Tons, and that's a great song. Great song. All right, now let's take a look at some Country Music Time Machine stats of the week. In total, since the Country Music Time Machine has been on the air, which has been a little over 2 years now, it has been watched over 226,000 hours. That's a lot of hours. I mean, not a, it hasn't been on that long, but if you were to add all the hours together, everybody's watching. So that's 250,000 hours just about people are watching. And if you translate that to days, that'd be people watching the Country Music Time Machine for 25.8 years. I just thought that was a guy who loves baseball and likes to play golf. I like stats. And I saw that stat and said, that's pretty cool. All right, let's get some comments of the week. And usually these comments are bad ones, I guess, but to me they're entertaining because 99% of the comments are cool comments. People are saying thanks and enjoyed this or enjoyed that. But there are some people, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to piss them off one way or the other. And I'm going to feature a few of those pissed off people right now. And here's one, and I did release, was it this past week? No, it wasn't. Week 4, Country Drinking Songs, episode 6. And this fella, Magpie1, says great channel, but 2 reasons why I won't subscribe. No, Don't Come Home Drinking with Lovin' on Your Mind by Miss Loretta, who I actually got to see in Baltimore, and I'm Going to Hire a Wino by David Frizzell. Well, I'm sad that Magpie1 is not subscribing, but he did take the time out of his busy schedule to leave that comment. But I have played both of those songs and talked about both those songs on the Crazy Country Songs series. I'm pretty sure. If it's Loretta or David Frizzell, I'm going to be talking about Lefty here in just a second, too. Another comment. This is from 1957 in country music history, which features the thumbnail of my mom's idol, Ferlin Husky, who was a good fella. Met him years ago, and he was not only a great singer, great country singer, but a great person. David Horn says about this episode where I was talking about the 1950s, and this particular one, 57, he says, film quality is rubbish. I'll not watch. Goodbye. I'm thinking with using the word rubbish is maybe David is from the United Kingdom over there in England somewhere. Well, David, hate to break it to you. In 1957, they did not have 4K TVs. You were lucky to have black and white, and you were lucky to have static on the screen, and you're lucky not to have your kid out there to twist the antenna so you could get a signal. So while I was covering 1957, I showed old videos. Sorry about that, David, but I thought that was an entertaining comment. Here's another one, and this is just from a person apparently who was not watching and listening to their video. I did a short video about Merle Haggard and Johnny Cash. In the Johnny Cash part of it, I was talking about Johnny going back to prison in 1969 at San Quentin to record another album. Well, Anthony Hall says, prison, he never went. Well, he never was locked up, but he went to the prison twice to record an album. So, Anthony, I hope if you are watching now or later, I hope you do understand that now. And let's bring up another one. This is from the Not Johnny Cash episode. A lot of Johnny Cash fans out there and some Johnny Cash impersonators. And I featured a few of them in this episode. And I made a comment about Joaquin Phoenix in the movie Walk the Line. Now, I think that's the name of the movie. I got it right. And I said that while Joaquin Phoenix may be a great actor, Joaquin Phoenix will not win awards for his ability to sing like Johnny Cash. Well, Greg Willis says, are you kidding me? Phoenix nailed that role and sounded as good as anyone could. You're a fraud. Okay, Greg. Me making my opinion that Joaquin Phoenix does not sound like Johnny Cash, I think that makes me authentic, just telling what I think. But anyway, thank you for your comment, Greg. Now let's go into some more country music news from the week. And Josh and I were talking about this over the last couple of weeks. The Academy of Country Music made their nominees on who some of the best artists are and who's going to be running for awards. A lot of the common ones that you see here on this screen, you see, of course, Morgan Wallen. And, oh, by the way, when you come to Nashville, if you want to hear Morgan Wallen and Jelly Roll on continuous loop, please tune into my old radio station where I used to work, the Big 98 WSIX. I just went to the gas station in Walmart today, and I think I heard Jelly Roll and Morgan Wallen twice. And I'm like, what about Merle Haggard and Randy Travis? I don't know. Anyway, there were a lot of nominees talked about, and most of these names, and I agreed with Josh, I have no idea who these people are. There must be many independent artists that for whatever reason aren't getting exposure or whatever. Many like Jelly Roll and others that are getting exposure. But the greatest news, honestly, was the first time ACM Awards nominee, Zach Top. And he is the future. And thank God he is the future. We need more Zach Tops. We need more Ella Langleys out there. So I do really hope that Zach Top does win an award. Because, folks, he may not be from the South. He's out from, and J-Cat and Josh probably correct me on this, I guess he's from Oregon. He's from Oregon or Washington State. Sometimes I get states confused, but he's an out west fella, but he's 100% country, and he sounds great. And he's doing what George Jones and Alan Jackson wants these young kids to do, and that's sing country music, not just a bunch of pop singers who just, hey, I'm going to go to Nashville, and since I'm recording in Nashville, let's call it country music. When it's blues or rock or pop, Zach Top is country music, and we thank Zach Top. And I do want, and Corey, J-Cat says Washington, and that is confirmed by Corey Beaver, Washington. So yes, Zach Top is a Washington boy. You hear him, you think he's from Georgia or South Carolina or Tennessee, but he's so good at what he does, and I hope that he becomes super famous and we get more music like that from him. And finally, in the news, before I take another drink of Coke and peanuts, without caffeine, I guess. I want to talk about um, episode that come out next Thursday, just in time for Easter. I'm covering, and I think this is the longest episode I've ever done. It's called Country and Gospel. It talks about the infusion of country music and gospel music because you can't really honestly have one without the other. Because so often, especially in the beginning, country music was gospel, gospel was country, and of course, bluegrass and other styles mixed in there, but it's an important connection. And multiple country artists have done gospel songs. Some have been big hits, some have not been. But that episode, we're going to talk about that. And for the first time ever in an episode, I'm going to play the entire song. I think, you know, getting ready for Easter, I'm honoring God. I think I should just play the entire song. So, yes, the video is a little bit longer and it's the entire song. So, I hope you can tune into that. I hope you do, and I hope you like it because I worked really, really, really hard on it. And now let's go ahead. Ben, let me take my Coke and Pepsi because I'm getting thirsty. And a reminder, my mom is inside the house. My friend Scott is walking around the yard. So this is like a live set. You're liable to hear cars go by, trains go by. You never can tell. Country music and trains work out real good. All right, let me take my face off the Alrighty, folks, I'm going to see now if it works any different. Please let me know if you're still there. And if you hear any audio, I'm going to switch my over here. All right, it looks like the audio is back. For whatever reason, it went out. That was either YouTube that made that go out, or it was possibly something on my end. I'm not 100% sure what that was. But anyway, let's bring back up the 1950s as we previously had on the screen. And I thank you all for your great patience. Test one, two. Test one, two. Let's do this. All righty, folks, I'm back here. I am praying that this thing is working now. And we may just be experiencing some crazy YouTube issues because it is a little weird. If you're still on the line, oh, thank you, Michael. That's true. I think you got better reception while you were in Belize. Michael, maybe there's something true about what you're saying there. That is very possible. Let me turn a bunch of things off there. Let's see how long we stay back. Let's hope we stay back for a while. I have no idea what was happening there, but let's hope. But I thank you guys for tuning in and letting me know when the mic's off, or I'd have been talking for the next hour or so, like Fidel Castro in Cuba doing a speech or something. But thank y'all for letting me know that something was going on. Sometimes YouTube does have these problems, and we just have to deal with them. So anyway, let's pop this back up and talk more about the 1950s and country music and that big antenna in it's not even in Nashville. It's in Scott. Is that antenna in Brentwood? The big WSM antenna?
Oh yeah, it must be in Brentwood.
Yeah, it's actually in Brentwood, Tennessee. But so if you folks not around this neck of the woods, the WSM antenna is not in Nashville. It's down south in Brentwood, in mine, going in the direction of where I live. And it has broadcasted great country music for decades and decades and decades. They just celebrated their 100th anniversary of the Grand Ole Opry. And it was very important in the 50s because you took that great antenna, you broadcasted all those great tunes, and, it just blew up in the 1950s, and many of the country artists at the times were being recognized like never before. Um, and one reason it got that big was a guy named Paul Cohen. Paul Cohen signed, produced some of the biggest artists in country music history, including Kitty Wells. We have Pierce, Brenda Lee, we got Patsy Cline, Bobby Helms, and more. In '76, he was actually inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. So he was the brains behind launching it to be such a, in a sense, worldwide phenomenon at that time. But why the 50s? Why did the 50s make it go crazy? I think it was a time of celebration because after the end of World War II, for you folks who actually did go to high school and were taught U.S. history, we had a baby boom, and there was a lot of, we had jobs, we had work to do, we were married, we were having babies, we were happy to be alive, we were doing cool things, and we were happy, and we were experimenting with different musical styles, and it was a great time in life. And I wasn't alive in the 50s. I came around in '68, but it was a great time, great time in U.S. history. Especially a great time in world history in a sense, if you don't count the Korean War, because World War II ended and we could more focus on, better things in life. So what did the 1950s bring us? It brought us a lot of cool stuff. One of the best was Lefty Frizzell. And, Joshua John will have to answer this question. It says Lefty, but isn't that his right hand on the guitar? I'm just trying to figure this one out. I just thought about that looking at the picture, but Lefty Frizzell was an icon of country music history, and many future stars loved him so much they tried to copy him. One of those guys was Merle Haggard. Let's enjoy a little bit of Merle Haggard telling a story about Lefty Frizzell.
And of course, I feel like I'm with some, like a president or something to me. There was nobody that I had ever met in my life that had that much power. And Bob said, this kid here sings like you. And I thought, well, hell, what am I going to sing? I don't know anything except his songs. I can't sing him. I don't want to come in and sing his song. So Lefty said, well, let me hear you sing something. And he handed me his guitar, the one with Lefty Frizzell across the front of it. And I hunkered down in front of him and put, got down like this, and set the guitar here and sang Traveling Blues, Jimmy Rogers song.
And that was the great Ralph Emery there with Merle Haggard. Would there have been a Merle Haggard without a Lefty Frizzell? That's a good question to ask. But Lefty Frizzell was one of the reasons the 50s was great. So were folks like the one and only Hank Snow. A lot of fans of Hank Snow, north and south of the American border, of course. And what about Brenda Lee? Brenda Lee, Little Miss Dynamite. Thank God Brenda Lee is still alive. She's been around a long time, and I hope she keeps on going and going and going. She's still as much sparking and has as much dynamite as she had back when she was young. And here's a good clip with Brenda Lee, and it tells a story about how Red Foley, the one and only Red Foley, loved Brenda Lee.
She was tremendous. Everybody that's seen her and heard her just marveled at how great she was.
Yeah, when Mr. Foley first heard me sing, he told me, he couldn't believe that such a big voice, he said, could come out of such a little person. So he was very complimentary and certainly was a guiding force in the early stages of my career.
Yeah, Brenda Lee there singing a Hank Williams song. And when I get into Hank Williams here in a minute, you're going to hear more about that. Also, the 1950s started the short career of the one and the only Patsy Cline. I've said it many times. I'll say it again. I don't care what musical genre you were in, whether it's rock, pop, country, jazz, adult contemporary, whatever it is, there are not many voices out there that could come close to matching Patsy Cline's voice. And she was a product of the 50s. Yes, Reba is close. I think Dolly is there too. And there are others with that vocal power that Patsy Cline had. But she started her career in Walking After Midnight in the late 1950s. But sadly, as was the case to a lot of country music stars of the time, a few have got lost in plane crashes. And here's a clip with whispering Bill Anderson as he remembers the day that Patsy Cline died.
I was asleep, and my phone rang early that Wednesday morning, I guess it would have been. And it was the wife of a dear friend of mine, Jerry Crutchfield, great songwriter. His wife, Patsy, called. And ironically, she said to me, she said, "Have you had the radio on this morning?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Hawkshaw Hawkins was killed in a plane crash last night." She didn't mention anybody else. She said, "Go turn on WSM," which I did, and listen to Grant Turner and T. Tommy Cottrell, who were on the air fighting back tears. In fact, they were highly emotional as they were telling the story.
Yeah, I imagine it was when you have an icon of country music. And even at that time, 1963, Patsy Cline was huge. And I think she became bigger after her death, as many, in almost a sense, martyred country stars have become. But the vocal power was there, and it touched so many people's lives, and it created so many future country stars because of their influence with the one and the only Patsy Cline. A few comments to pop on the screen here. Bigelow says Merle could sound like a few country greats. Actually, he did a great, I think it was a great Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard did. Corey Beaver said, "My dad was born in 1950, Mom in 54. As a matter of fact, Mom was 2 weeks old when Steve Wariner was born on Christmas Day in 54. Steve Wariner, another great country singer. You don't hear much of them anymore. And J-Cat leaves me two words. Leanne Rimes. J-Cat, you're 100% correct. While Leanne has not probably gotten the credit she deserves for her music, she should get the total credit for her vocal ability, because her vocal ability is in that same plateau that Patsy Cline is. I think, my personal opinion, some will agree, some will disagree with that. What hurt Leanne Rimes more than anything else was her song selection, the producers behind her, because some people in Nashville are cutthroat, dirty, as you would say, SOBs, and maybe she got mixed up with the wrong people. Maybe she was not mature enough at the time to understand the business. But you're 100% correct, J-Cat. Leanne Rimes, incredible vocal ability. Blue, Bigelow mentions Blue, sounded a lot like Patsy Cline. So yes, Leanne Rimes should get a lot of credit and I don't know. I don't know if Leanne was influenced by Patsy Cline, but there is a similarity there in the vocal range, and the vocal ability of those two ladies are very close. Is she better than Patsy Cline? I don't know. Maybe I'm too biased on Patsy Cline, but Leanne Rimes is a great singer. But of course, Hank Williams was probably the biggest thing that came out of the 1950s. And for more than just being Hank Williams, because Hank Williams and his music influenced so many musical genres of the time. There were what you would call pop singers singing Hank Williams songs. They were being covered. They were being sung by people around the world, because that's how powerful his words and his music was. And in the upcoming episode, the country and gospel episode I have coming up this Thursday, I'll tell the story of the Hank Williams song, "I Saw the Light." Now, it wasn't until recently that I actually realized, for some reason now, when I was a kid in church, I remember singing that song, but I never looked at the composer or the writer of the song before, and did I realize it was Hank Williams. I mean, if you think a song is almost purely biblical and traditional, and I honestly thought it was one of those songs we sang from the 1800s, but it was written by, a man that wasn't a perfect man on earth. He was a big sinner. There's no doubt about that, but written by Hank Williams. So Hank Williams was a big influence and a big reason why the 50s were so powerful. And of all the rehashed decades I've done on the Country Music Time Machine, when I'm putting all the decades together, the biggest numbers, the biggest viewers is from the 1950s episodes. Is that because of most viewers are older watching the Country Music Time Machine? I look at the stats, and it's not necessarily it. It's because they loved the music. That's why the 1950s were so great. And Hank Williams was one of those reasons. Al Green, Elvis Presley, Dean Martin, Grateful Dead, even the Rolling Stones covered Hank Williams songs, and even Wonder Woman covered I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry. Yes, Linda Carter sang a Hank Williams song on one of her albums. And I actually listened to it, and it sounded decently well. But sadly, he did die young, January 1st, 1953. He was only 29 years old when he died. But of course, Hank Jr. came along, and Hank Jr. commercially has had much more success than Hank Sr. ever had. But the impact that Hank Williams has made on country music, and in some sense, you could say, because of that influence and his stick-to-itiveness to real country music, that honky-tonk sound, maybe it allowed country to live a little bit longer. Also, a big name from the 1950s is one that is often mentioned as being the queen of country music. That name is thrown around a lot for different females, Dolly Parton, Reba McEntire, but Kitty Wells, you could say she was the first queen, the first female with a number one song with It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels, and she was the diva of her time. You just couldn't match her. She was spunky, she was good, but she was also very focused. And here's a clip where, and this is, I call this the old Crook and Chase show, but it's not the Crook and Chase show when this part came out. I guess it was called Music City Tonight. But Kitty Wells, Kitty passed, I think, in 2012, but Kitty Wells is talking to Crook and Chase about being a lady.
What do you think is the wildest thing you ever did on stage?
I can't think of anything wild I ever did.
Really? Nothing at all?
No.
Your husband probably would have gotten very angry if you'd done anything wild,
Yeah,
huh?
probably. Now, he might do something like that.
Yeah, I know. But, considering the fact in 1952, I believe it was, you had this record, and you really opened the doors for a lot of ladies.
Yeah.
You had to be very careful about how you approached your career as far as
Yes.
the public perception of you, didn't you?
Sure. You couldn't travel, like girls do now. They'd get in the bus and travel with their band. And, of course, back then you couldn't get away with things like that. I was fortunate that I always could travel with my husband,
Yeah.
Johnny and Jack, I traveled with them all the time.
Well,
Yeah.
when I look at you, I always see a true lady. What is your definition of being a lady these days?
Well, being just what I am.
The wonderful, the incredible Kitty Wells there, along with the wonderful, incredible Crook and Chase. I met them back in 1989 after Hurricane Hugo, and they're good folks. And it's good to rehash some of their episodes of different shows they did when they included country music legends like that. But let's continue on. Let's talk about the Nashville sound. That was one thing that came out of the 1950s, and there are people who loved it, people who hated it, because it was going a little bit away from the honky-tonk sound or the bluegrass sound, and there are a few artists who were really doing that in the 1950s. Patsy, of course, had a huge hit with Walking After Midnight in 57, established her as one of the greatest voices of all time of any musical genre, as I have said many times and will continue to say. But this is often debated. The country historian Rich Kienzle identified that Gone by Ferlin Husky it was recorded in 1956 as the possible first ever Nashville Sound song. I don't know. Was it? What do you think? That can probably be debated until the end of time, especially if you study 1950s country music. But Ferlin Husky was amazing. But when I think of Nashville Sound, I often think of Jim Reeves, and I love Jim Reeves' voice. He has another one of those voices that if I could sing like one man, it'd probably be Jim Reeves because, you know, I could probably find a wife then if I went up to her and sang like Jim Reeves sings. You know, the writer Colin Scott argued that Reeves' Four Walls, recorded in February of 57, as the first Nashville Sound record. Well, I don't know if it was the first or not, but it was one of the many, and that still was happening in the 60s. It went into the 60s as well. Some folks loved it, and I do love some of the Nashville Sound songs, but it does remind you of today's country music where when you listen to it, like what sound is it? Just because an artist records in Nashville, does it mean they're recording country music? Or is the song, is that what makes it country music? You know, I'll let you guys fight about that and think about that because I love some of it and some of it I didn't love as much. But I think that it is welcome if there's a good mix of it, but we must stay true to our roots of traditional country music because if we don't, what are we? A pop music genre? You know, a pop country rock genre? You know, if there's so much of it, maybe we need to create a different chart called the pop country chart and keep more traditional artists like Zach Top, Ella Langley, and those other artists you never get to hear because country radio is overblown by pop or rap country. You know, just think about this. My opinion probably doesn't mean a lot. And we'll also talk about Elvis Presley. There's always been debates about whether Elvis Presley was a country singer. You know, I really think he sort of started out either in those days he was a country singer or he was a singer who was a little bit, you know, shaking his hips or whatever with poppy songs that came from the South and sounded like a country singer. When we look back on the 50s and Elvis now, when we hear a lot of his music, we do hear country because country music has changed so much. But we also must always remember Blue Moon of Kentucky. He sang that song on stage in his only appearance on the Grand Ole Opry. Opry manager hated it. And this was before Elvis's career kicked off and basically told Elvis, you need to stick to driving trucks. Well, I think we can thank the good Lord Elvis didn't do that. He went on and made some great music. But it does make you wonder if Elvis were to have lived and would have been able to control his drug habits and everything, could he have been a successful country singer? I don't think he could have continued doing rock because in the late 70s it was overblown by disco and then it got different in the 80s. He may have become a legendary country singer anyway, but that's one thing we can always think about. But of course, you can't think about the 50s and you can't think about country music in general without thinking about Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash was the one, and he was good friends with Elvis, who bridges the gap. Johnny Cash was a country singer, but honestly, he could have made a decision to go in one of those two different directions. He could have been in Elvis's corner, done in Jerry Lee Lewis's area, done more rock or pop rock. He decided not to do that. He decided to stick more to what he loved and what he knew, and that was his version of country music. And he became a legend doing it. So it was people like Hank Williams, then Johnny Cash, that kept country music strong and genuine. So please, I do invite you, if you love the 1950s country music, you need to check out the 1950s playlist here on the Country Music Time Machine, where I run through every single year of the 50s in country music history. I tell you about the news and the prices and everything and how that sometimes influenced the country music. But I talk about the big country stars of the time, as you see on the screen there: Johnny Cash, Ferlin Husky, Jim Reeves, Marty Robbins later in the 50s, and many more. So please check it out. I encourage you to, especially if you like really good country music. I'm going to bring back a comment from Corey. I asked my dad what the music was, and he told me it was songs by Lefty Frizzell, of course. Then I had no idea who he was. And Lefty Frizzell does not get mentioned a lot in country music history, but he was the meat and potatoes of the 1950s country music scene. And Corey says because he died nearly 4 years before I was born. So, yeah, Lefty Frizzell was great, and so were the 1950s. Folks, I do thank you for tuning in, and I thank you for your patience. Just looking over some things while I was doing the show tonight. YouTube has had some issues. I thank you for putting up with those issues, and after they stopped, breaking down, we seem to roll through the show. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for tuning in. No matter where you were from, we got folks from Honduras tonight, Germany, the West Coast, the East Coast, the South. I thank all y'all. And please, if you get a chance, tune in to the Country and Gospel episode this coming Thursday. And don't forget, if you need something for your front porch, like my front porch here, or your back porch, or the top of the house, the middle of the house, the garden, check out Home Depot. Don't forget to check out those Blink Outdoor 4 cameras. I got them all over the place because they work really well. And they're cheap, honestly. I don't like to pay a lot of money for anything. So until next time, this is Kevin. This is the Country Music Time Machine. God bless you. And remember, let's keep it country.
Oh, it's a country music time machine, taking us back to where the grass is green, with twangs and tales from days gone by. Let's ride those old trails beneath the open sky, in our country music time machine, in our country music time machine.